Joan Herman. Oh my goodness. You hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Outstanding.
When we get to vents, I'm going to explain to people why there's so many vents around their house. But many people don't know. Oh, here we are. Hello.
That okay? See okay?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
If you guys are with me during dinner time, you guys probably would have been house shocked I scarfed down my dinner.
No, I would not.
Oh, I finished making dinner at 6:45. I served myself at 6:50, and I was done by 6:53.
There you go.
Yesterday, you ate your breakfast in 4.76 minutes, I think, and I was still on my first wedge of pancakes.
That's hilarious. Well, there'll be at least 5 people paying attention to us tonight.
Well, I only see 3 participants. That's you got 5 in the waiting room?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Dante, put your email up on the chat. We'll get that out of the way. I just put mine up.
I am doing that right now.
Very good, sir.
I can.
Coleman. Oh, David, if you see if you could remind people if they're eating dinner while attending the meeting, kill the cameras. If that's something you feel like watching people eat is a distraction. Although if they eat as fast as Dante, won't make a difference.
There's a new thing in Zoom where you can share sound from the computer if you're playing video.
Oh, so you can overlay it with like intensive music and stuff like that? Okay.
He could put elevator music as they're waiting in the waiting room.
Oh, yeah.
It'll let folks in about a minute and a half or so. And there are a dozen people in the waiting room right now.
How many invitations do we send out or notices? I wonder what
Like
percentage we're getting out of that.
250?
Yeah, and we're getting like 30 people.
The last 2 meetings we've had like 35, yeah.
Yeah, and we're trying to figure out a way to up that.
Well, I think one of the reasons why it has been, I think there's 3 reasons that I can think of. 1, it's winter and it's rainy and there's no fires. 2, people think that they can watch it whenever they want. They don't have to actually be there for the live presentation.
Oh.
And 3, people are just busy.
I guess.
Everyone just has stuff to do.
Yeah, and it's also dinner time for people that eat a little late.
All right.
Let the horde in.
So we're going to let a bunch of folks in now.
$11, $12, $13, $14, $15, $16, $17, $18.
Good evening.
Hello, everybody. Make sure that as you join that you keep your microphone muted. If you are enjoying dinner, which is fine. Just turn your camera off. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes. Just give a couple other folks a couple moments to join in here. All right, we'll get started in 1 minute. All right, everybody. Let's get started with the May 16, 2024 Wildfire Town Hall as part of MySafe LA's Fire Safe Council activities. So welcome. We're glad to have you here as we are every month. And we have, I think, some really interesting stuff to share with you tonight as it relates to insurance, making your home a little bit safer, some of the stuff that we've been learning as we've been dealing with the state on some of the important topics related to wildfire, as well as the city's issues related to brush clearance as it is that time of year. Just so you know, we do record these shows. We are recording video now, and we've just about set up our new playback system so that if you're unable to join us in person, you'll be able to watch this at your own convenience. That should be up and running in the website very shortly, and we will make sure that everyone gets a notification when it is available. If you need information about the website and getting to the website, if you've got a phone or something, you can point it at the screen and use the QR code to access it. You can also, of course, watch the presentation later, or you can look at the actual link, which is wildfirela.org. Just give everyone a chance to take a quick peek at that. So our agenda tonight is fairly broad. Couple of little announcements just to make sure that we are getting off on the right foot. We're going to talk about brush clearance because it's that time of year in the city of Los Angeles. We have some tips on getting started with home hardening. One of the things that is a challenge is when we talk about all the things that you can do to reduce the ignitability of your home, it can be daunting. And we've come up with a simple list to get started that really anyone should be able to accomplish. Very important insurance update, some very recent important news. And I've just spent a week in Sacramento talking with folks about what's going on in the world of insurance and what we need to be concerned about. And I have some updates for that. And tonight we're going to talk about what may be a fire that you don't necessarily remember, the Canyon 2 fire, which occurred in Anaheim in 2017. It was actually extremely important relative to what took place, why it took place, and what was learned afterwards. So those are our key topics for tonight. One way to get started is to give you an update on our progress and things that we've been doing. And I would be delighted to turn it over to our own county coordinator, Carl Ginsberg.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the May Town Hall. As you can see from the picture, that's me addressing a homeowners association. And this particular association has made a lot of progress towards becoming a fire safe council. We have a few more steps to do, and they will be certified as a fire safe council, which enables them to apply for all the benefits that are encumbered with that membership. We're adding additional homeowners associations. I get emails every couple of days from homeowners associations I'm not aware of, and we haven't contacted yet, looking to get certified as Fire State Council. So it's an expanding program. We welcome any homeowners associations out there who are not working with us at this time to contact us. If you look at the chat, you'll find both my email address and Dante, who is my partner in the county of Los Angeles, and also throughout the city. Contact us, and we'll come out and do a presentation, and we'll explain how it all works, and we'll get you on the road to becoming more fire resilient for your own safety and for the safety of your residents and of course, your neighbors. Lots more information on the website that you can also access to learn more about what we're doing and where we're doing it and what the steps might be to help you to get certified. Dave, back to you.
Okay, thanks, Carl. So here's a brief update on what's going on in the wildfire website. We do add new things all the time, and it changes, so it's not quite as commonly changed as a news website is, but it's not far behind. And we're about to introduce an all-new survey. Not only will this new survey be available on June the 1st, and we'll send out a notification to everyone, but we will publish the results of the recent survey, which will close on Sunday. There's a lot of interesting stuff that we're learning from the many people who've participated, and I think you'll find it very useful because this is a chance for you to speak and share your ideas and so on. And we will have some incentives for people who take the survey, the next survey. It does talk about some of the challenging issues such as Zone 0. It does talk about home hardening. By the way, we're starting to call home hardening wildfire retrofitting. Pardon me. It seems to describe what people need to do a little bit better. And I think you'll find the results both interesting and surprising. So that's what's going on the website. I think we're going to need to talk a little bit about brush clearance. It's a challenging topic, but it's extremely important. The LA City environment has plenty of areas where brush clearance is required. Brush clearance regulations in the city are tougher than in most places. And to help us find our way through this part, we have Dante Cornejo. Hey, Dante.
Hello, good evening, everyone. So just like David said, it's that time of year for brush clearance. So brush clearance is a year-round activity that should be maintained, and that's just within your communities and also on your property. So making sure that all your native brush, weeds, grass, trees, and hazardous vegetation within 200 feet of any structures or buildings on your properties or within your communities are maintained. So that goes on if you have a shed within the 200 feet of that, within your house, within a driveway, stuff like that. And so just like I've said, it's a year-round activity. So it's fire inspectors do inspect for that your brush clearance is maintained in April and May, but it shouldn't only be done in April and May. So if you trim your brush and your vegetation in April and it's starting to grow back in June, July, then go ahead and trim it again. It's not just an April and May activity. It should be maintained throughout the year. And just some statistics for you. So we have the city of LA City Fire Department only has 11 fire inspectors for the 254,000 parcels that need to get inspected every year. Just a hefty load. So, and maintaining your brush clearance and keeping it up throughout the year is one, gonna reduce the ignitability of your home, gonna help with home hardening and defensible space, but also it's gonna help the load of your local fire department of LA City. And then for the latest information, same thing. You can scan the QR code for our website, or you can even visit the LAFD.org website /fire prevention /brush clearance requirements for any further information. But that's the update I have, and I'll pass it back over to David. Thank you, guys. David, you are currently muted.
I thought I had unmuted. Thank you. Home hardening or wildfire retrofitting is a tough issue for a lot of people to comprehend relative to all of the steps that are there. So we're breaking it down into baby steps, so to speak, things that anyone should be able to accomplish. And to help us through that, we're going to talk to Carl again. Carl?
Thanks, Dave. Dante and I have been doing a couple of home assessments every couple of days for the past several weeks. And like David said, it's in order to do everything that you need to harden your home is daunting. There are a lot of steps to take care of. There's some expense involved. So we've narrowed it down to things that are inexpensive, but they have a very good impact. So let's look at the list that we have here. Vents around your house. I don't know, maybe everybody doesn't know why there's so many vents around their house. So there's basically two areas where there are a lot of vents. Those are around your eaves around your house, which open up into your attic. Why do we have all those vents on the attic? Well, that's to keep the attic cool so that the heat doesn't build up in the attic, thereby heating up the ceiling in the rooms below, costing you more money, air conditioning, fans, etc., to keep it cool. It also has an effect on the roof material. It keeps it from getting overheated, which gives it a bit of a longer life. Now, you've also probably seen all those vents around the lower portion of your house that lead into the what's called the crawl space. Not that you would ever want to crawl in there. I did it once, and I'm never doing it again. That's to keep the underside, the lumber underneath your house dry, and usually there's sand under the house. That could get wet if you have any leaks in your plumbing system. So this enables the air to circulate there through there to keep it dry. Or we've had a lot of rain, and rain accumulates outside of your home, but it could also creep under the foundation of your home and get that sand and stuff under your house damp, which what happens when you have damp, you get mold, and you don't want mold because there are a lot of molds out there that are very, very harmful to your health and very toxic. So you need to have those vents, and you can't close them off to keep the embers out, but you need to screen them properly to keep the embers out. And that goes for all the vents around your house. The eave vents, the roof vents, the crawl space vents, they all need to be screened, and the new standard is a 1/8 inch aperture screen. The old standard, and we've seen in older homes that have been built more than 30 years ago, or actually some pretty recently, that have a 1/4 inch or larger aperture, and that's just right for those embers getting into your home or under your home or into your attic. And if that happens, your house is likely to be a total loss. So some houses have few vents, some have a lot. You also have to look at things like the dryer vent. The dryer vent opens up theoretically when you have your dryer running, and then there's a little flap in there that's supposed to close to keep primarily the insects out, but it also will keep the embers out. But as it accumulates with lint from you doing your drying, they tend to clog up, and the little flap won't close. So that's something else you have to look at. So any entryway into your house that embers can find, we have to protect against. I've been looking around to find some handyman type of contractors who can do the vents for you at a more reasonable price. I've heard some pretty high estimates from a couple of neighbors that we spoke to, and I thought it was very high. So I'm looking around for better solutions for hiring somebody to help you with the vents if you're not a handyman yourself and you want to do it yourself. Should you want to do it yourself, all the equipment that you need, the product that you need is available at Lowe's, Home Depot, any of the reputable and larger hardware stores carry all the different screens for different types of vents, different sizes, depending on what you have in your home. Chimneys are important to protect against in two ways. One is, and that's done by having a spark arrestor on the top of your chimney. That it takes care of two things. One is if you're using your fireplace, that'll keep the embers from coming out of your fireplace up through the chimney and landing on your house where there may be some dry leaves, and they set those afire, and then you know where it could go from there. The other reason is to keep embers that will be present in a wind-driven fire from getting into the chimney and getting down into your living room through your fireplace. So that's an important thing to look at. Now, outside the house, you want to make sure that you get anything that's flammable away from the house. Could be outdoor furniture, chaise lounges, tables and chairs. If they're made of wood, replace them with metallic if you choose to, or make sure that should the weather be in a position where it's very warm, it's very dry, and it's windy, get all that stuff away from the house. Put it out in the driveway. Put it someplace 10 or more feet away from your home.
You're not going out.
Address numbers. When we do smoke alarm installations, we write down every home's address that we do because we need to keep statistics for the fire department and other agencies. We come across houses and there's no address on them. Why have your address on your house? Your friends, your neighbors, your family knows that that's your house, but when the fire department has to go and find an address and they can't find it because you don't have those numbers on the outside of your house, makes it a little more difficult and delays their ability to get to you as fast as possible, especially in a medical situation where there's no smoke showing. So they got to find your front door, knock on it, and bring the medical experts in to take care of you. People that park their cars in their garage, they probably drive in and out of them every day, but have they taken the time to look around the left and right edge and the top of the garage door and the bottom where there's supposed to be a rubber seal? Well, all those 4 areas of that garage door should be protected with reliable rubber seals. Again, it's another place for embers to get into your house. So it's worthwhile to take a little time and go around your house before we can get over to your house and give you an assessment, and just look around and see what the challenges are. And if you just try to accomplish what's on this small list, it will go a very long way to protect your house. There's a lot more that can be done, but these steps will be enough to get you going should we have a fire. We have a fire season coming up. It's supposed to be a very hot summer. We have a lot of growth out there. There's a big chance of fires happening in many different parts of the city. So take it upon yourself, take a few minutes, go around and take a survey of your house and see what you need to do, and then make a plan and see what you can accomplish. And if you need help, you know where to find us to find out more information. It's all on the website, and we can send you more information on how to take care of all these things. Dante, you have anything you want to add?
Just like Carl said, doing these steps, it really reduces the risk of your house being possibly affected during a wildfire event. And taking these steps and doing those mitigations really go a long way. And all of those steps should be no more than maybe $2,000. It's not that much money in the long term in comparison to you losing your home. So taking those steps will highly benefit you guys.
And of course, that leads to the idea of other things that you can do. And this is something that we've talked about a lot during the last year and a half, but I want to come back to it and put it in context for you. As an example, we've talked about becoming a fire safe council, and we've talked about becoming an NFPA FireWise site. Both of those programs are important for different reasons. FireWise is important if you've got a group of homes that are not formally organized. Most homeowners associations actually operate as a nonprofit entity. And for those entities, those nonprofits, whether it's 501c4, C7, C5, whatever it is, becoming a fire safe council is extremely important. And we're working to make some very good progress with folks. The Brentwood Homeowners Association is now a fire safe council. We've got 3 other communities that are very close to being named as fire safe councils. And then we've got other folks that are more in the beginning stages or the intermediate stages of doing this. And people ask all the time, why is being a fire safe council so important? Well, we've been talking about hardening your home, and we've been talking about creating defensible space. If you're a fire safe council, you have the opportunity to apply for grants. And here's a couple of examples of grants that are important. Actually, this image is of Thelma Waxman, who is the president of the Brentwood Homeowners Association, and she just won the Honorary Fire Chief Award for Operations West Bureau this past weekend. And it's because of how she has been pushing her community forward relative to this overall wildfire safety, as well as other types of safety for the community. You'll see a listing here of fire safe councils. These are not counties or cities. These are all fire safe councils. So Butte County just this week from the U.S. Forest Service was awarded $2.7 million. Siskiyou was just awarded $9.9 million. Poma, $6.8 million. So if you are a fire safe council and if you work with us to help you find the appropriate grants which can be useful to you, there's real money out there. And that real money can be used for creating defensible space, clearing your roads, making sure that homeowners that maybe don't have the money to be able to conduct a lot of this stuff on their own in terms of clearing brush or putting vents in or other kinds of things to make their home safer, that there's money to do that. And, you know, some of the smaller Kern County and Santa Clara got over $200,000, but that's what they asked for, based on what they determined that their needs are. Every year, there's between 5 and 10 different grant opportunities. Some of them are small. Southern California Edison provides wildfire safety grants, particularly to fire safe councils, and they're typically small. They're $5,000, but you could use that for a wildfire fair, for brochures that you are specific to your community, for collaborating with us on a safety fair, whatever it may be. Even $5,000 could be very useful. But in cases like the Department of Agriculture or FEMA or the state's conservancies, other types of entities are providing serious money for fire safe councils to be able to reduce the risk of wildfire in their neighborhoods. All right, let's move on to insurance updates. And keep in mind, we will have an opportunity for people to ask questions. But there's a lot going on with insurance. We know that every day we get more and more phone calls from folks saying, what's going on with insurance? Can you help me find a broker? Can you help me find how to get insurance? I can't get any. I just got canceled by my insurance provider. We want to be able to give you some information that hopefully will be helpful. You've heard me speak in the past about what Governor Newsom and Ricardo Lara, the state insurance commissioner, talked about on September the 21st in terms of the steps that they wanted to see moving forward to get more insurers to come into the state and to provide competitive rates for insurance. Unfortunately, that entire project is currently stalled. There's no forward motion on it, and that's good and bad. It's bad because obviously more people are retreating and fewer people have insurance. But it's actually good because it is raising the temperature related to the insurance crisis. And the way that we look at it, it is absolutely an insurance crisis. In every meeting that I had while I was in Sacramento, meeting with CAL FIRE, with Cal OES, with assembly members and state senators, the number one topic that we covered was insurance and what can be done about insurance. And there's some really good things happening to try and advance the crisis into a more acceptable and reasonable environment. Mark Sexton is the vice president of the American Property Casualty Insurance Association. And this quote from him, which he just made a couple weeks ago, is extremely important from the position of the insurance providers. And what he's saying here is that during the last decade, insurance providers in the state of California have paid out $1.13 for every dollar that they've taken in. So they have been negative 13 cents per dollar in terms of what they put out. If you ran a bagel business, or if you had a clothing store or a hobby store or whatever it is, if you lost 13 cents on every dollar, you probably wouldn't be happy and you'd want to make some changes. One of the things that is kind of confusing when we make that simple analogy is that insurance rates have gone up 400, 800, sometimes 10,000%. That's because of the number of homes that are being covered. And it's also because the insurance companies are trying to send a message to the state about how they want help and how they need to make sure that the policies that they issue are actually going to be effective. effective insurance policies mean that the insurance provider makes enough of a profit so that when someone has a loss, they can afford to pay the loss. So we all know about the California Fair Plan. We've talked about it many times. And it's essentially a runaway train right now. So if we go back just till perhaps 2019, I should say, 1919, right? If we go back to 2019, there was 154,000 policies in effect, or policies in force, PIFs is what they say. But today, that's accelerated to nearly 400,000. And between 12 and 15,000 new policies are being issued every month. So this is a very dramatic shift forward. And the Fair Plan gets about 1,000 application inquiries every single day. So it's taking them a certain amount of time to be able to move this forward. And one of the most interesting things about the insurance model in California can be seen on this screen here. If we go back to last May, essentially a year ago, there were 9,000 insurance brokers in the state of California that were registered to write California Fair Plan policies. Fast forward to this year right now, and there are over 54,000 insurance brokers able to write Fair Plan policies. So that is a tremendous jump, a ninefold increase in the number of people who can write these policies, and it's because the demand is as high as it is. But this isn't solving the problem. This isn't actually getting us across the finish line, so to speak, in terms of solving the insurance crisis. So there's some important steps, and a lot of this became known when I was up north a couple weeks ago. And this week, public notification was made that the state is creating a new working group on California wildfire insurance. This is a group of elected officials who are creating an ad hoc working group to solve the issue, to determine how we will have competitive rates, how we will have a competitive number of providers, and how those providers will be able to A, make money, and B, provide insurance policies at competitive rates. Heading up that working group is the state Senate President Pro Tem, Mike McGuire, and he's going to be making an announcement about this group in the next week or two. I have a meeting with them next week as a follow-up to my meetings in Northern California. I'm also meeting with several state assembly folks in the next couple of weeks, and we are working collectively on how we can make this work. And what I'm sharing, what all of us are sharing from MySafe LA, is what are your experiences? So we've had a lot of folks on our survey tell us about their issues related to insurance and what the drama is that's affecting their homes and their families. We're sharing that in turn with the state. It's another reason why taking these surveys is so important and useful. We're also sharing with them what we see when we're in the neighborhoods, when we're inspecting homes, when we're dealing with those sorts of things. And we're giving them real world on the ground feedback about how the lack of insurance could affect the state if we have another Camp Fire, or we have another Woolsey fire, or even a Getty fire. Those types of tragic and fast moving wildfire incidents can change the state's outlook, and they can change insurance entities' ability to pay. And we need to get ahead of that, and we need to have some proper policies in place. So please stay tuned. I expect whether it's the next Fire Safe Council meeting that we have, virtual town hall for June, or if it's the one of July, but in the next couple of them, we're going to have some very important news to share with everyone relative to how the insurance crisis is being lessened and how new opportunities are coming forward so that we can all start to breathe a little easier. I can tell you just the other night when we did a presentation to one of the homeowners associations, they had nearly 100 people in attendance. And one of the number one questions was, do you know a broker? Do you know someone who can help me? Do you know what's going on? And that continual urgency and need that you, our audience, and the public in general are raising is very, very important. So keep complaining, keep talking to us about it. We're compiling a list of brokers that can be helpful to you, and we will have those in our website. But stay tuned because we're working on this very diligently to help you. All right, it's time for us to talk about our monthly wildfire history event. This one's very interesting, and stick around to hear about it. We won't spend too much time on it, but it's a really important fire because of how it came about and how it was managed and what lessons were learned from it moving forward. The Canyon 2 fire took place in October of 2017, and it was a wind-driven fire. It was disastrous in what it could have been, and actually Orange County dodged a bullet relative to the number of homes that were destroyed and so on. You can see here that this home is just taken off and is surrounded by vegetation that is fueling the fire. So this is one of the most critical issues, is the timeline. And I want to share the timeline because it's really important to understand how communications is vital. And in Los Angeles, we have a very, very good communications mechanism, but what happened in Anaheim could happen anywhere. So there was a fire in September of that year, and that particular fire was adjacent to this one. It was called the Canyon Fire. It was right off the 91 freeway, and it impacted railroad tracks and disrupted transportation from the harbor. And it was not particularly dangerous to a lot of homes because of where it burned, and was knocked down, or at least everyone thought so. But just 3 weeks later, a motorist called in the morning and reported flames kind of at the intersection of the 241, which, for those of you who don't know, it goes from kind of Irvine over the hill to the 91 headed towards Corona and Riverside and so on, and said, "Hey, I see fire," at 8:32 in the morning. At 8:45, Fire Station 53 of the Orange County Fire Authority had already logged more than a dozen calls about that same issue of fire, but there was no assignment. They didn't go to investigate it themselves, and it was simply calls that were logged. It wasn't until 9:31, 59 minutes, essentially an hour later, that a motorist reported the fire in a way that got OCFA to dispatch a battalion chief, Battalion 2, to respond to that fire. At the same time, a dozer tender, which is a pickup truck that can support bulldozers, was close by and said they would investigate. And Engine 32, which was also on the radio out in the field, said that they would go. And at 9:39, they both kind of arrived where this fire was. And they said, yes, there is fire here. We do have fire. But it wasn't until 9:53, so almost an hour and a half later, that Battalion 2 arrived on scene, assessed what was going on, and ordered a full brush assignment. That is a tremendous amount of time from the first call in until someone actually asks for a brush assignment. Approximately 20 minutes later, the first helicopter over the fire, OCFA's Helicopter 1, advised their dispatch center and the incident commander that the Canyon 2 fire was a wind-driven fire. In many fire situations, in situations where there is a fire, once it's determined that it's wind-driven, that changes the response model, and it changes how resources are deployed to it. The fire was already moving way too quickly for people to get a handle on it, and it was burning more than 200 acres an hour. And by noon, 800 acres or more had already been destroyed. And it was moving like a freight train. Here you can see a map. And in the top, we see the 91 freeway. You see the 90 interchange and the 71, which heads north towards Pomona, and the 55, which is from, Tustin and Costa Mesa and so on, which heads up north. The little green area in the upper center right area is the September Canyon fire. And then the little orange dots right around there are the ignition point for what was the Canyon 2 fire in October. The red dots are homes that were lost. And you can see that it burned all the way down the 241 freeway, which in and of itself created other kinds of complications. Here's some images that show you what it was like that evening. This was a hot, fast burning fire. And thankfully, by this point in time, there were resources from many different cities all working in support of each other. And the management of the fire was under unified command from 3 different organizations. Even CAL FIRE was involved, the state's firefighting agency. So there was a tremendous amount of effort being put into trying to stop this fire. Some of the key statistics about it, it was in Anaheim. 25 homes were destroyed, but 16,500 people had to be evacuated. And that evacuation process proved to be very challenging because this was in the middle of the day when people were trying to use the 241 freeway and it was shut down. And so when people were evacuating, they thought, well, I'll get on the 241, but they weren't able to do that. There was not good communication to them about where they should go, what they should do, how they should get out of there. Although the command post was cooperating with the Anaheim Emergency Operations Center, and they were building a plan. But they were trying to evacuate people while the plan was still being developed. So 9,200 acres overall were destroyed in the course of this fire, which lasted, for the most part, for 2 days. And its cause was rekindled embers from the canyon fire. So this is a really important issue. Firefighters try and make certain that there are no hidden embers which might be lurking about. It's a process they call coal trailing, and they use hand crews with shovels and brooms and rakes and stuff. Some of the funny things you may have heard about, but that have a serious function, and that's to turn dirt over or to move tree stumps, or to do other kinds of things to make certain that there are no embers or glowing wood debris or other things that might rekindle and make things worse as you move forward. Here's an example of some of the homes that were destroyed. And it's an interesting photograph. If you see the 3 homes in the foreground, you can actually, I'm not sure if you can tell looking at your computer or your phone or your tablet screen, but the 3 homes that were destroyed had wood fences between them, which are for the most part damaged, if not destroyed. Most of them have vegetation right up against the home. There are palm trees there, half of them which are destroyed and half of them which are intact because they were separated enough, which speaks to defensible space. A palm tree is like a Roman candle. It's extremely flammable. And the fact that these didn't burn really speaks to the separation between them, which is part of what defensible space is all about. Now, if you take a look at the home on the right-hand side of the screen, on the right-hand side of the screen, that home is intact. But if you look at it, it's got concrete all around the outside of it on the base. So that's essentially what we talk about as being zone 0, right? So there's absolutely nothing that's combustible within 5 feet of the perimeter of the home. And it has a Class A roof on it. So those 2 key elements are hugely important. The rain gutters on this house are clean and half of them are enclosed. So there's really no place for embers to lodge. The chimney has a spark arrestor on the top of it. All of the vents have coverage on them. So this home was spared because the homeowner took the steps to make sure that even though the home directly next to it was destroyed, that there'd be enough space so that embers flying through the night, because these homes were destroyed overnight, would not actually consume that home as well. It's an interesting lesson to take care of. Here's some data points related to this fire. Tremendous amount of highly volatile and flammable fuels. A lot of chemise, which is a fuel, it's a vegetation, it's a plant that has a tremendous amount of oil in it. And if it is exposed to a lot of sunlight, and it can actually get to an ignition point just based on the amount of fuel if it's in alignment with the heat of the sun. A lot of sage, which is another flammable, but overall a whole series of native California vegetation that was growing quickly. We had a little bit of rain in 2016, so in 2017 we had more vegetation to burn. But that vegetation, which during the springtime was very moist, a lot of moisture in it, by October had less than 5% fuel moisture in it. And we are facing the same potential for this year as we transition from El Nino to La Nina. It's very likely that we will have a very dry summer potentially warm, and we always get Santa Ana winds. So with those kinds of things collaborating together, we may face fuel moisture levels that are extremely low, just like this. As I noted a few minutes ago, the evacuation proved extremely challenging. And a lot of lessons were learned in terms of how to manage that. And I think it's a huge, huge effort. Mutual aid. We talked about the idea a couple minutes ago about different fire departments working together. The mutual aid system in Orange County saved homes and saved lives, and they expanded it significantly after this fire, as were air resources. So I'm bringing that up because in Los Angeles, we have a tremendous amount of resources available. We have rotor wing aircraft from LA County Fire and from LA City Fire. We lease fixed wing aircraft during fire season, and there are other private contractors like Colson that provide fixed wing aircraft. So there's a whole series. We can actually have an air force, so to speak, that can go to war against the wildfire. One of the things that also developed that proved to be very useful, but only after the first 12 hours of the incident, was the use of public information officers and their use of social media. This was one of the first fires within the Orange County environment where the use of Twitter, Facebook, and other social media engines were utilized extensively to notify the public about where to go, what the status of the fire was, and what they should be doing and thinking about. And the after action report is extensive. After a wildfire, after any significant incident, a fire department will take steps to make certain that they are able to learn from each incident. And they write up a document which is shared with the elected officials, with all of the members within their fire department or anyone who's interested. And that's called an after action report. And this after action report is nearly 100 pages long and covered everything that you would imagine related to a wildfire, the fuels, the weather, all of those sorts of things. And in fact, when we look at those kinds of things, there were some critical issues that were raised. This was a perfect storm relative to weather. The humidity was extremely low. The moisture level in the vegetation was extremely low. It was windy and it was warm. And so all of those things created what we would call a fire weather day. The delayed assignment of firefighting resources allowed the fire to take off. If people had gotten there sooner, we don't know exactly what would have happened, and it's kind of difficult to say with any certainty that it would have been different. But the delay in and of itself certainly didn't help. And the heavy vehicle traffic on the freeways and on the roadways complicated evacuations. So there's some technology available now that came about because of this fire. And it developed in Orange County. This software allows a fire department to actually predict what an evacuation will be like. And it can be used anywhere. It can be used in Los Angeles. And so you could actually say, if you were an incident commander, show me what it would be like to evacuate, and you draw a circle on a map, these 845 homes, and it will say what roads they should take, how long it will take for them to get out, and other factors related to the direction of the fire, the speed with which it's moving. And all of those things play well into the idea of helping an incident commander and law enforcement manage evacuations much more efficiently. And I think the key point was the speed of the fire. This fire was moving like a freight train, and it wasn't going to stop for anybody or any reason unless it was forced to. And it took OCFA and all of their partners about 40 hours to knock it down. And it was, they're very lucky that it didn't consume more homes or kill people. As you can see here, this is from one of the homes that was destroyed in the late afternoon. Right off the 241, and we're looking at the garage, which is collapsed. This is not something that you want to come home to or that you want to see happen to your home. So just as a reinforcement, I'm a broken record right here, so forgive me for that, but this all proves that if we can lower the ignitability of your home, then we can actually take important steps that will help us keep our home, even if there is a wildfire. Because let's face it, we aren't going to be able to stop all wildfires, so we have to learn how to live with them. And that's what MySafe LA is here to do, is to help you live with them. Carl, you want to tell everyone a little bit about the wildfire exercise that's taking place this weekend?
Sure, I'd love to, but let me jump back a moment, because when I was telling you about the home hardening, I forgot about the item on your home, which is a very efficient collector of leaves and is a very easy source of ignition should there be a wind-driven brush fire. So those gutters around your house, they're leaf collectors. What happens when it gets warm? They dry out. They don't go away, they just dry out, and that's fuel. So if you can afford to, there are commercials on TV all the time from various product companies talking about putting all these fancy screens and stuff on your gutters. It's not what we would call inexpensive. But what do you do in the meantime? Make sure they're clean. One way to do that is to get a leaf blower and blow the leaves out, and then collect them with a rake and a shovel, and put them in the green bin. Or get up there on a ladder and with a bag like I do, and clean them out and get them free of any leaves. So that's another important thing. I'm sorry I missed it back there. But this Saturday, the LAFD, in conjunction with Council of District 7 and Monica Gonzalez's office, or Rodriguez, yes.
Rodriguez.
Yeah, somebody wrote it down correctly on my sheet here. We'll be holding what's called, it's a brush fire and evacuation simulation. Now, the simulation is going to be the fire department and all the different resources. It's going to include LAPD, LAFD, Highway Patrol, Department of Transportation, all these entities that come together when there's a big emergency. And they found some new tools I was reading about that were very interesting, which is they're computer-driven simulations that feed information to the firefighters at the command post and simulate what could be happening during a major emergency fire, or a very big brush fire. So we're not going to light the hills on fire to make it look good, and to provide the information to the command post. But the computer-aided simulations that came from some of the universities around town will allow the command post and all the resources to act as if there was a real fire going on. So a little list of who's going to be there is Emergency Management Department. Those are the people that run the Emergency Operations Center downtown, which is open when we have heavy rain, when we have earthquake, when we have any kind of disaster, possible tsunami, whatever. They open up and they help get everybody in the city from all the different agencies to get together into one big room and to figure out what has to be done, what's going on around the city. So they're an important asset that we have. Animal services. What do we do with our animals during a fire, especially if we have large animals like horses, goats, etc.? There are agencies, animal control can help with that, but that's something that you'll learn about. Department of Water and Power, of course, during a wildfire, utility poles burn up, trees fall down, and power goes out. So what to expect during a big incident from your local DWP is important to know about. What else we got? We have, of course, our PIO from our fire department will be there talking to people and pretty much emceeing how things go throughout the program. There'll also be a PIO from Highway Patrol who talk about what they're going to do during an emergency. LAPD will be there in force. They're going to bring out their horse unit, so you can see how they respond on horseback. Who else we got? The CERT unit, of course, will be there. It was always there at these exercises and situations where people can learn something, and they'll talk to you about, and they'll show you how to turn off your gas supply to your house if there's a major earthquake, and how to put out fire in your kitchen, how to do some light medical response if somebody's injured in an earthquake, or something more minor like the kids scraping their knee, and the best way to treat it. So all the resources of the city are going to come together and demonstrate what goes on during a major incident. Now, I've been, and all of us from MySafe LA at one time or another have been at a command post. And with all the information flowing in, it could look like it's overwhelming, but you're going to see the fire department do what is like a ballet. Under what's called the Unified Command, all of the Highway Patrol, the Police Department, Department of Transportation, which takes care of evacuation activities and all that, they're all going to be within a few feet of each other. So each of the major agencies will have their command post set up, but they'll be able to talk to each other without having to get on the radio, get on the phone. And that's what the Unified Command is about, because it brings all of these groups together to make decisions with their unique area of expertise, going to the major plan of how to attack and how to respond to this kind of an incident. So it's going to be great for everybody to see. There'll be things for kids out there, and vendors who will be providing products that you can buy to make your home safer. So it's a great thing to do. It's from 10 a.m. It actually starts at 8 o'clock with the demonstration of some of the response. And then it opens generally to the public at 10 a.m. till about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So if you have time, it's at Hanson Dam, easy place to find. So come on down, we'll be there. Hope you come by our booth and see what we have to say.
Thank you, Carl. Appreciate it. Our next town hall is June 20th. We're going to have more fire safe councils to talk about the next step in retrofitting. We're going to talk about our next wildfire safety fair, which is going to be in the Sylmar area of the city. And we will be announcing at least 2 other safety fairs in the LA area for the summertime, including one of them at the Greek Theater. So we're excited about the opportunity to do some very large events where we can get people together. We always will provide free lunch. Free food is always a good reason to show up for something. But we're going to have a lot to share in our next meeting. Before we say goodnight and move on, this is a great opportunity for people to ask questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand using the Zoom function, and we will say hello and figure out a way to answer your question if that's at all possible. Anyone have questions? Sarah Jane.
Mr. Wachtel, I have a question. Michael Wachtel, I live on Hutton Drive. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, yeah. The issue of evacuation is serious. We're in the Hutton Drive, limited access to access both into the city and into the valley. Right now, Benedict Canyon is closed down because of mudslide. Hopefully that'll be open by fire season in the fall. But one of the things I think we need here in the canyon is better guidance on how to get out of here if there's a problem and what'll be done. Right now, even during a normal commute session, traffic is backed up and down Deep Canyon and Hutton Drive. And it would be a disaster if there was a reason that we had to evacuate, either for an earthquake or a fire. The other question is, I have to have you is, what percentage of the insurance of insurance in Benedict Canyon, which is where we all are, and this is directed to Benedict Canyon Association, have been canceled? We just got notice of cancellation from State Farm, and as did many of our other neighbors. I'm sure others have as well. What percentage of insurance policies have been canceled in this canyon, if you know?
So your statements are true. But one of the things that we could take from what you just shared with us is that a wildfire is not contained inside of 4 or 5 walls the way that a structure fire is. And because it's out in the open, one of the reasons we don't actually advocate for evacuation drills is because people then believe they create a mental memory map that this is where I'm going to go in the event of an evacuation. Having primary and secondary routes for an evacuation is extremely important to know about, but you never know what might happen. So whereas there's a mudslide that's blocking access right now on Benedict Canyon Road, that could be a fire in another kind of a situation, and you might not have access that way. One of the things that the Los Angeles Police Department and Department of Transportation are working on is automating the process of turning 2-way streets into 1-way streets, so that if you have to leave in a hurry, you won't be dealing with 2-way traffic. All the lanes in a particular road will be towards exiting out. And everyone kind of knows how risky that can be. The software that I mentioned earlier is also very important, guys, because it allows you to create what-if scenarios. So the fire department, the police department, whoever wants to use this software and it's not something available to the public. So that's why I'm not telling you about the name of it or where to get it. But this software is terrific because it could actually simulate a wildfire evacuation in Benedict Canyon right now with the road blocked by a mudslide, so that you would have the opportunity to be able to look at how long, and this is really important, guys, how long will it take to get 1,800 homes evacuated? Is it going to take 45 minutes? Is it going to take 5 hours? And so by running these models, which are based around the technology that we hear about a lot called artificial intelligence, this what if scenario management is helping LAPD, LA City Fire, LA County Fire, and the Department of Transportation to evaluate and create what we call pre-fire plans, to be able to look into the future to say, if something were to happen, and by the way, it's not just how do we evacuate, it's how do we evacuate at noon? How do we evacuate at 5 p.m.? How do we evacuate at 2 a.m.? So you can create any series of parameters and then test it to be able to see how it would work. So I hope that answers your question and or supports your statement. All right, Sarah Jane, your turn.
I have several things. First of all, a follow-up on the landline issue. Will we still be able to have landlines in wildfire areas? Hopefully they aren't getting rid of them. And then another, I mean, I'm in Hollywoodland in Beechwood Canyon where we are overrun with tourism. We can have back-to-back traffic of 30 cars, bumper to bumper. Is there some way to get the fire department that all the time sets capacity for buildings, to set capacity for the magnets that are attracting these people and the capacity of our streets that carry them there? Because it is ridiculous now. I mean, it is so dangerous. It's just the only strategy the city uses in our neighborhood is luck, and that's not sufficient.
Yeah, luck is not a strategy. And I appreciate your question, Sarah Jane. You can put your hand down now and I'll give you some answers. So number one, you may have heard that landlines are disappearing. They're not disappearing anytime soon. So there's been a lot of pushback about that. And we certainly don't expect that during this year or next year that they will be disappearing. And if they are going to change, then they're going to have improvements in cellular and other kinds of outreach so that people can be properly notified about what's going on. Just having a mobile phone in the canyon, for anyone who lives in any canyon, you know it's iffy, right? It's not always going to work well, and there are dead spots and there are other kinds of issues going on. I can tell you in working, and we've been working with EMD and AT&T, providing them feedback about Mandeville Canyon and Bel Air and Benedict and other canyons. In fact, we were just in Beechwood Canyon, Sarah Jane, yesterday inspecting homes in the canyon so that we can provide that feedback. As it relates to tourism and so on, it's a challenging issue because you live in a famous part of the city that people want to see. And I know that there are some discussions taking place about how to manage it. What I can tell you is this, is that if there is any inkling of fire, the streets are going to be shut down really quickly. They have a rapid response plan to get LAPD motor officers up into the canyon extremely quickly to be able to make sure that any ingress of tourists or tourist buses or anything else stops right away. You have to challenge.
That hasn't happened. We've had fires and they will not close down the streets, and they have let people come up, even with fires in our neighborhood recently.
Well, that's something that you need to take up with Council District 4, not with us. We can't help you, unfortunately. Okay, Janet, why don't you tell us what your question is and we'll try and help.
Let me unmute. So I have a couple questions. One is, you mentioned a fireplace cap on that house on Canyon 2, that they had a fireplace cap. How necessary is that to have and retrofit? And then also, could you tell me a little about the temperature of the Canyon 2 fire? Like you have mentioned in the past, the temperatures can get up to about 1,200 degrees. So did that affect the timing of evacuation? Did they have more time than the normal, let's say 15 minutes to evacuate? Do they have a little extra time for that? And then finally, could you talk about soffits under eaves? Do you think that it's worth the cost to put soffits to flatten out the eaves so that they're not exposed?
So I'm going to let Carl jump in here and give you an answer, but my overall comment would be is that any steps that you can take to prevent your home from having a hiding spot for embers is a good idea. Carl?
Well, if you're, we've seen at some homes where they have the open eaves. My house has them because there's rafter tails coming out of the roof struts. In some cases, the construction, it makes it difficult and it makes it very work intensive to be able to box them up. What we've seen is where of the underside where the stucco roof, the stucco wall meets the very top edge where it goes to where the eave is, right in that little corner. Over time, because of house movement and earth movement and previous earthquakes, whatever, a space opens up. So if it's properly sealed off and there's good paint on all the wood that makes up those eaves and the rafter tails, that should help deflect the ember cast. It would be probably, I couldn't even tell you how much it might cost to go around an entire house, at least on two sides of every part of the house, and enclose it. It's a big job, and you'd have to talk to a contractor about that, and you'd probably be surprised by the amount of money it would cost. But if you make sure that there's no little entrance ways into that attic, because stucco over time gets a little dried out and they red chip out. It's easy to get a bucket of stucco patch over at Home Depot or Lowe's, and you take a little trowel and you stuff it in there and then brush it nice, it'll look like new. Other than that, I don't have a real good recommendation for you.
Thank you. That helps a lot. And the fireplace caps, would you also say that may not be necessary? Because a fireplace is a natural place for embers to go down. Well,
you should have a spark arrestor on your chimney anyway, because if you use your fireplace, when you hear the wood pop in the fireplace, it always puts out sparks. Well, they're hot. Which way are they going to go? They're going to go up out the chimney, which is hopefully the right place for it to go, right? So along with that hot air, it's going to be hot embers. And if going back to your, even in not in fire season, if there's dry leaves in your gutters or around your house, and some of those embers roll down the side of the roof and into your gutters, and the gutter lights up, it could get under the edge and get up underneath the roof material, and what's under there is wood. Once it hits wood, it could travel anywhere it wants. So there's two reasons for it, So you could also get embers that will fly, and chances are that they'll drop onto steel or brick within your fireplace. But I would err on the side of having that spark arrestor up there with the proper screening on it.
And to answer your question, and Jim,
yeah, the evacuation.
To answer your question about temperature, OCFA rated the temperature during the canyon fire of flames at between 572 and 1450 degrees.
That'll almost melt steel.
Yeah. So the time for that evacuation, that was probably a separate question. Those two aren't really related, but were the homeowners, do you know what they typically were given for evacuation, what their orders were, how much time they had?
No time, 15 minutes.
Thank you.
And let's remember that you may not be told to evacuate, so we have to also be prepared to shelter in place, and that's why protection of your home and hardening of your home is also very important.
This is why we talk about the ready part and the set part, right? So ready is all of the home hardening, but the set part is if there is a fire, what are the things you need to do to be able to get ready to leave or to be able to shelter in place? Very important. Jill, what's your question?
Hi, David. I have two questions. One is, how would we go about requesting an evacuation simulation in Benedict Canyon?
So what is it? So let me ask you a question. What is it that you want to practice?
Well, there's a particular area at the top of Summit Ridge that where I live that ends at the bottom of Beverly Park, and there's a gate there. It's
Mhm.
not a manned gate, it's a locked gate.
Because it's
That
a,
is the
because
that
it's a
would be the
fire road? Are you
I'm
talking
not
about a
sure.
fire road?
I'm not
I
sure
bel-
how they
I
use it.
believe you're talking about a fire road, which is not free to be used by the public.
Correct. It
Okay.
is not.
Okay.
It's chained up.
Okay.
So that would be the egress for about 100 residents. That if there's a fire beneath us, it's sort of a Mandeville Canyon situation that we would be trapped. But if we could go through Beverly Park, it would take us to Mulholland and we'd be able to have egress. But unfortunately, it's a private community. So I'm curious how an evacuation would look.
So it's a really good question, and it's something that everyone wants to know is if I have to evacuate, where am I going to go? And as I was just saying a few minutes ago, and as you'll hear from your fire department leadership, we don't want to tell you where you're going to go exactly because nobody knows. The direction of the fire, the speed of the fire, the amount of smoke that's related to the fire, the number of people that need to leave, all of those will affect what route to take and how it will work. And it's not a good answer in the sense of making you feel comfortable, but it is a good answer in terms of letting you know that your police department, your fire department, and your Department of Transportation are all working collectively to make certain that anything that has happened in the past isn't repeated that is negative, that improvements are made in terms of how people are helped to evacuate and that they're given enough time to evacuate. It's much better to leave even when it doesn't seem like you need to, in order to have enough time to safely get out. If you leave and nothing happens and you can come home, that's great.
So what
So,
I'm trying to say is
yeah.
there isn't a street below us
Mhm.
at some point that we could exit. The only place that we would be able to exit is up the hill through these gates, which
Gotcha.
are locked. Yeah.
So how do you get home at night? How do you drive home if you don't have a road?
Well, we come up Summit Ridge from
Okay, I know Summit Ridge.
Connecticut. Summit Ridge.
So are you assuming that Summit Ridge would not be available?
No, we live at the top of Summit Ridge
Mhm.
and it dead ends at this gate.
Gotcha.
So
So
some people have a situation where they have mountain and they actually don't have an option to, like Mandeville Canyon, they don't have an option except by foot to leave. We actually, all these residents up there would, if the gate would be opened, if we could go through Beverly Park to Mulholland. I'm just saying, if
I
I
hear
know
you.
that, I'm sorry,
It
fires are in
sounds,
all different areas, but if there was a particular one that was that type that was down below us, that is where the issue would arise.
yeah, that sounds really interesting. I would direct you to take a look in the chat at Carl Ginsberg's email. If you send him a note about where you are, we will come out and inspect exactly where that gate is in that road. And we will then take it to Operations West Bureau and get some feedback for you specifically about evacuation.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Robert, what's your question?
Robert,
Jill, to answer your question, as you know, I live on San Ysidro, and my daughter lives up on Apricot, which is very close to the park, to Beverly Park. The head of security came down and talked to me about it, and he's told me, if you have a fire, if there's an emergency evacuation, you have to call the LAPD, and they will call the guardhouse and tell them to let evacuees through.
I understand that, but in a fire, when things are moving quickly, that's just not going to happen.
Okay.
It's
Well,
one department and then the other department. That's a lot of luck. Yeah, I'm just saying if there was an understanding where they would open or the fire department would just open the gates, then that would be great.
So I think what's really useful here, it would be, as I said, reach out to Carl. We'll come and take some photographs and do kind of a hands-on look at exactly what you're talking about, and we will get you some hard answers.
Thank you. I'm looking at his name. I've clicked on his name in the chat, but I don't see an email address.
Carl, you want to enter your email one more time in the chat?
I certainly will. Yeah, I put it up. It's at the very top. I put it in.
I don't see anything
Okay.
in the chat except for names.
It'll be there in 0.5 seconds.
Okay.
So this is an important part of our process. We want to make sure that we hear from everyone about the things that you're concerned about. And even if we can't necessarily answer everything right now, we take it all under advisement. Our job is to make sure that we're communicating not only with all of you, but also with the city and the fire department and the police department and so on. We are tied into every city department. And so we have the opportunity to be able to hopefully take steps that will be helpful and that will make things a little bit better. We're also building a lot of very important relationships with a number of the conservancy groups in Southern California. And I think it's important that we kind of work our outreach initiative to help those entities that are worried about the actual vegetation and land use and temperature and fire threat so that we can collaborate on having really good solutions for the public. So I think that settles our evening, and it's been great to have you here, and thank you very much for paying attention. It's been a good issue. I'm really excited about our next meeting in June. There's going to be so much that we can share with you. So thanks for being here, and we hope to see you next month. And be safe out there and take care of yourselves. Be kind to each other. Good night.
Good night.